This is Panorama at Praxis Modular, where we discuss developments, opportunities, and insights into the latest technology and trends in the modular construction industry.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Panorama podcast. Today on the show, we have Gloria Westgate, the Chief Business Development Officer of Praxis Modular, a modular building company based here in New York City. Gloria, thanks for being on the show.
Why, thank you.
All right, well, let's get right into it, Gloria. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you started modular construction?
Well, I have about 25 years of experience in the contract commercial office furniture industry. And there I did several tenant fit outs, build outs. And I got started one day when a recruiter was persistent for probably about 3 months trying to hire me for another modular company. And I was like, I don't want to sell construction trailers or portable classrooms or anything like that. She's like, no, we're talking about buildings that look like any other building. So that piqued my attention. And so I decided to go interview, and I got the job, and I started creating actual buildings out there. And I was able to drive by and say, hey, not only did I design the interior, but I did the exterior as well. So
that's cool.
And that was about 10 years ago. And ever since then, I've been in love with modular and the concepts involved.
What are some of the exciting ways that modular housing is being deployed right now?
Well, a lot of it is being deployed for almost immediate housing needs, workforce housing, affordable housing, homeless shelters. So those are the more immediate needs. And other ways, there's a big shortage of housing within the United States, and it's being used to build single-family homes, townhomes, multifamily, affordable housing in a much quicker time frame than conventional building would take place. So it's a very exciting time right now for modular.
You mentioned how much more quickly modular buildings are constructed. Could you talk a little bit about some of those advantages of how much quicker a modular build can go up?
Well, the reason why modular construction is quicker is that it's a concurrent construction process between the site work and the assembly of the modular units, or the construction of the modular units in a factory setting. So those two processes can happen at the same time. So once the site is ready to start taking the modules, they can start shipping from the factory. So we don't have to be 100% complete on the construction of all the modules. We just have to have enough modules there so that the crew on site can keep installing them with no gaps. So generally, when you're about 60% complete with the modules, you'll start delivering and setting them on site. So there's a lot of overlap in the process. So typically, we're looking at a 6 to 8 month time savings versus conventional construction.
Wow.
And that allows for quicker occupancy, quicker revenue generation, saves on the construction soft costs. So there's benefits all the way around by utilizing modular construction.
Are there any ways that the living, for example, in a multifamily modular build, the living experience of a modular property, are there any differences between a traditional build?
Well, there's several. First of all, there's a better acoustics or STC rating. You don't have as much noise going between the walls or up and down from apartment to apartment. I've lived in a conventional built apartment building, and it was extremely noisy above me. So with a modular, just with the regular assembly that you would have between an upstairs unit and a downstairs unit, you're looking at 49 to 52 STC rating.
Wow. And I know that for a lot of people outside of the construction industry, modular can still be a new concept for them. So what are some of the misconceptions about modular construction that you've seen out there?
Well, I've alluded to a couple when I first heard about the modular industry and getting into the modular industry. Part of the problem is that people identify modular construction with things that are easily identifiable: construction trailers, portable classrooms, mobile homes. it's very easy for people to have biases and prejudices against modular construction because a good modular building, you're not going to know that it was modular unless somebody tells you.
Interesting. And from an environmental standpoint, I know there are a lot of environmental benefits to modular builds. Could you talk a little bit about what some of those benefits are?
Yeah, a lot of the benefits are less site disruption, less waste of materials. Everything's built inside a factory, so there's no water intrusion. During the construction process, it's just a cleaner overall, leaner construction process compared to a conventional site where materials are sitting out in the rain, getting covered in mud, water. They may start to grow mold. And there's also a lot of waste on a construction site. In a modular factory, if there's extra lumber, it's not going into a dumpster. It's going to be utilized for the next project. So it's a very environmentally friendly way to construct a building.
So, Gloria, there's been a lot of interest from investors in getting into the modular space. So could you share a little bit about what's drawing so many investors into the space right now and what they should be thinking about?
Well, there's several reasons why investors are putting their money into modular construction. First, there's a huge labor shortage, and a lot of companies just don't have the resources in which to construct the buildings. So really, modular construction has become an alternative to conventional construction. And when you take into account the technology that's being utilized in the factories, it's really the wave of the future. It's the way construction is going to be conducted in the future. It's very predominant in Europe and Australia, and it's really just beginning to take a foothold in the United States. And we're starting to see several companies getting a significant amount of money from Amazon, from Google, to come up with solutions for housing.
And if you're a developer or a builder who's considering a modular build for your project, which you probably speak to a lot of similar folks as a business development officer, what's some of the decision-making process that an investor should be thinking about if they're considering a modular build?
They need to think about it at the beginning because it's a different way of designing a building than the conventional way. You have to have double walls, which will either expand the footprint of a building or shrink the size of the rooms in a building. And you have to design the rooms such that the plumbing fixtures are closer to the hallway corridor where the MEP connections are going to terminate and into the hallway and then be connected in the field. So there's a lot of design considerations that have to be taken into account on the front end of a project versus, oh, I've designed this building, now let's try to make it work modularly.
What are some of the ways that Praxis Modular comes in then as an advisor for some of the clients that you work with, whether it's on the design aspects or the engineering aspects, to help them figure that out essentially?
Well, we discuss the project at the beginning stages. We give them an idea of what the budget, the timing is going to be. We talk about the size of the building, number of floors. We have to take into account how we're going to build it. Is it going to be wood or light gauge steel? Or, are we going to have to use, how much structural steel are we going to use if it's more than 9 stories? There's a lot of different things that have to go into account. How do they want the rooms laid out? Are they going to have weird shapes, or are they willing to standardize the layouts so it's a lot more efficient to manufacture? And it's just a process of educating them as well as their architect. We do have the services to work with their architect. We have architects, engineers that are specifically trained in modular, that understand the process. We work with them through the design phases, and it's a very collaborative process, a lot of back and forth, so to speak, because sometimes, their architect doesn't understand, how things need to meet up, how they need to connect so that it can be built in the factory and then assembled in the field and transported to the site. That's the other thing is, can we even get modules delivered to the site?
You mentioned wood versus light gauge steel. Do you talk a little bit about the differences between them? And I know that light gauge steel is an area that Praxis focuses on.
Yes. Well, we do both wood and light gauge steel. Wood is good for construction up to about 4 stories. Some areas you can go to 5 stories. And light gauge steel is designed more for type 2B non-combustible buildings, and it's more expensive. So generally, once a client gets above 4 stories, they have to go to light gauge steel because it's more structurally sound than wood. And light gauge steel can go to 9 stories. And you're looking at about a 30 to 40% cost differential between the two. Wood is still a lot less expensive than steel.
What are some of the ways that you think the modular industry it will continue to innovate in coming years that you think are the most exciting?
Well, I think the industry is going to become even more environmentally friendly. I think there's more consideration taken into account with the materials being utilized than people have considered in the past. It's going to become more technologically advanced. A lot of new technology is being designed and can easily be incorporated into modular buildings than conventional. I think one of the other things to say about modular buildings, especially in some environments, the nice thing about it being built in the factory is that it assembles quickly on site. There's less break-ins and people stealing equipment and technology just from a theft standpoint. But a lot of systems that are going to be monitoring, the HVAC, the water consumption can be incorporated very easily into the buildings. And even solar is very popular. And a lot of the same materials that can be done conventionally can be utilized in modular construction. So there's not any limits to the creativity or the technology that can go into modular.
Got it. Well, Gloria, we always like to close out the interview with 2 more personal questions, and you've been in the modular space a long time. So I wondered, what would be a piece of advice that you would offer to others who are just starting out in the industry?
There's so much to learn. Just when you think you've learned it all, there's something else that you don't know. So I would say you don't know what you don't know. So keep learning, keep studying, look at a lot of the white papers, look at what your competitors are doing. You want to be in the forefront of the pack. You don't want to be behind playing catch up. So education is very important.
And lastly, what's something that you enjoy doing outside of modular construction?
I'm a co-vintner in a winery located just outside of Pittsburgh.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's called Borelli Cellars, and we've been doing that since my friend and I have been doing that business since 2017, and I also enjoy hiking, biking, a lot of the outdoor activities, and spending time with my German Shepherd, Yasmin.
Nice. Awesome. Well, Gloria, I appreciate you being here today. Thanks for coming on the show.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to the Panorama podcast, and we'll see you next time.
That concludes this episode of the Panorama podcast at Praxis Modular. Thank you very much for listening.